You have probably heard of Taylor Swift because she's an unbelievably famous music artist, but I don't know anything about music. So I had to go look up her Wikipedia to get some background information on her. Because I've seen her coming up in the news recently about dating advice. And if there's one thing I've got to say is don't take dating advice from Taylor Swift, right? So if you didn't know, if you're like me and have been living under a rock for the past 300 years, Taylor Swift has sold 200 million records worldwide. She's one of the best-selling artists of all time. She's got 11 Grammy Awards, an Emmy, 12 Country Music Association Awards, 25 Billboard Music Awards, which is the most for a female artist, 32 American Music Awards, again, the most wins for any artist, 49 Guinness World Records.
Not bad, is it?
She's on Rolling Stone's Greatest 100 Greatest Songwriters of All Time, placed 8th on Billboard's Greatest Artists, and has appeared multiple times on like power rankings on Time and Forbes Celebrity. She was named Woman of the 2010s decade by Billboard, and Artist of the 2010s decade by the American Music Awards, and of course she's like beloved by millions and millions of people. Mm-hmm. Phenomenal professional success.
Oh yeah,
unbelievable. Actually, this is the very top of the pile that she's at. So if you want advice on how to be a successful musician, definitely go to Taylor Swift. You're going to be hard pressed to find someone who could give you better advice than her, no doubt. But when it comes to her dating life, her personal life, and this is not the sort of thing I'd normally talk about, but it came up in the news and I saw it and I was like, right, okay, that's annoyed me. She's not the person to go to for advice. In fact, almost anyone else is better at this sort of thing than her, because it turns out that she dates a lot and she's not a great success in it. There's lots and lots and lots of articles talking about the men Taylor Swift has dated, which to me would be a good indication of why you shouldn't date Taylor Swift personally, even though, of course, she's a beautiful woman, she's very successful, she's doubtless intelligent and interesting, blah, blah, blah. But this is what's going to happen to you. You get added to the long list of people who get every aspect of this, what should be an intimate, private relationship, dissected by thousands of people in the media to be read by millions of people.
And you'll get a song written about you as well.
Well, yes, you will also get a salty, bitter song written about you. So just to go through the list of the ones that I found most conveniently on Google, she wrote, the only reason there's a chap called Andrew Hardwick on here, because in 2006 he was like a high school crush of hers, and she had written a song about him that was a popular song. He personally wasn't famous, he was just a regular dude. But the first famous boyfriend she had was a guy called Joe Jonas. I don't know who he is. But they were together for like 4 months in 2008. And he's now married to Sophie Turner from Game of Thrones, the Sansa star from Game of Thrones. They've got a child now. So, he's doing well. She's still 31, childless, unmarried. She then dated a guy called Lucas Till in 2009, but had a 3-month relationship. And then in 2009 again, she dated some guy called Taylor Lautner, again, for a few months, then onto a guy called John Mayer. I don't know who any of these people are, by the way.
John Mayer's another musician.
Right, okay. Again, she was with him from December 2009 to February 2010. So again, 3 months. It's really weird how this pattern keeps going on for her, right? Corey Monteith, again, for a few months. Jake Gyllenhaal back in 2010, from October to December, again, the same sort of period of time. It's really weird how it's constantly this period of time, isn't it? Connor Kennedy, from July to October, Harry Styles, from December to January 2013, again, 2 to 4 months is her relationship length for some reason. Tom Hiddleston, from June to September, and then Joe Alwyn, who I have no idea who he is again either, of course, from 2017 to present. So this has been a four-year relationship for her, right? And
good Lord.
Exactly. So she's got a history of, no scientific evidence to back this up, but what I think this is a person who is in love with the early romance of the relationship. When it's new and fresh, you get lots of chemicals flowing around in your brain and everything is very romantic, and the world shines, and
she likes the early buzz.
Yeah, the early buzz, exactly. And that wears off about 3 or 4 months, and then she just moves on, it seems. This is my armchair psychologizing about Taylor Swift, a person I don't know anything about. But it is a bit sus, isn't it? That she's got 10 relationships over the course of a decade that are just a couple of months each time. And the thing is, a cynical person would say, yeah, well, what she's doing is dating these men, having this emotional high, and then breaking up with them, and then writing songs about them, and then making lots of money. But I don't think that that's why she's doing it. I think that's just a consequence of what has happened. I'm not that sort of cynical type, but she writes a lot of songs about her ex-boyfriends. Like whatever happened in your relationship with Taylor Swift, millions of people are going to know about this. I'm just like, right, okay, I don't think I'd want that. Imagine just having, every relationship, or just a relationship opened up for millions of people to examine. I can't imagine it's pleasant at all. And the reason I'm talking about this at all is because recently she has re-released a song that she wrote about Jake Gyllenhaal called All Too Well, that apparently is making women reassess large age gap relationships.
Right.
Okay, what happened? So according to The Independent, that's what's happening. She's released a 10-minute version of this song, and she has apparently added a reference to her relationship with Jake Gyllenhaal. So 10 years down the line, she's still not over this 3-month dating event while she's with some other boyfriend that she still needs to talk about it. I mean, I'm starting to feel a little bit more cynical about it now, actually, now I think about it. Or that's really weird. Because, I mean, I've probably dated women for a couple of months 10 years ago who I don't even remember. I'm not trying to be rude or anything.
No.
But, like, you date for a few months and then you just move on, don't you? It's not that big a deal.
No.
Unless, of course, you're Taylor Swift. But anyway, so the song apparently was originally released in 2010 and had long been rumored to be about her relationship with him, Gyllenhaal, but this new version, of course, confirms it. Weird. And for Joe Alwyn, her current boyfriend, this must be a very weird experience. Being like, right, okay, now everyone's talking about how she dated this other guy. She's not, she's not said anything to me, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, it sounds extremely uncomfortable, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, yeah. So the new lyrics apparently include the lines, "I was never good at telling jokes, but the punchline goes, I'll get older, but your lovers stay my age." All right, okay. Get over it. Sounds weird. But at the time, he was 30 and she was 20. So, I mean, don't get me wrong, a 10-year age gap, fair enough. But a 20-year-old dating a 30-year-old doesn't sound crazy to me. It's not like it's an 18-year-old dating a 50-year-old.
No.
Right?
It's not a seismic age gap.
No, it's not. I mean, it's significant, sure, but it's not like, unbelievable. Gyllenhaal at the moment is apparently dating a 25-year-old model. He's 40. So, that's a bigger age gap. But again, who cares? Because we're going to get into the science of age gaps in relationships in a minute, if we dare. And it turns out they're actually a good thing, so deal with it. But after Swift's fans heard the song, says The Independent, they rushed to Twitter, of course they did, to pledge their allegiance to the singer. Why? Is she asking for allegiance? And hashtag Jake Gyllenhaal soon began trending. Just 10 years later, he gets up in the morning, goes and grabs a cup of coffee. Jake, you're trending on Twitter. What? Why? Well, Taylor Swift is talking about that time you dated for 3 months a decade ago. Oh, bloody hell. Looks at his inbox. It's just constantly, you abused her. You exploited her. Oh, my God. Imagine his day. Right?
Ruined.
Yeah, exactly. And that's the thing. I'm reading about this thinking, what's he done wrong here, right? So yeah, 100,000 tweets under the hashtag, oh, good news. So many fans are also reassessing their own relationships after listening to Swift's song, which is weird from the sort of permissive love is love movement. Suddenly, love is love, except if the guy's 10 years older than the woman, then it's not love. Weird. So Guardian columnist Moira Donegan wrote, Taylor Swift, revisiting her 10-year-old bad breakup with an older man, reflects a really particular feeling where women remember relationships they had with older men in their teens and 20s and wake up and was like, wait, that was exploitation.
Oh, God.
Was it? No one said anything about exploitation. Taylor Swift didn't say anything about exploitation.
No, this is some pretty shameless baiting, isn't it?
It is incredibly shameless baiting, and so I'm going to take it. Because I enjoy taking the bait. The remaining article is basically just, random Twitter women complaining about a bad relationship they'd had and ascribing that to the fact they'd dated an older man. And it's like, okay, thanks for your input. Really useful. But actually, the science of it, the facts of the matter are that most women prefer men who are older than them and most men prefer women who are younger than them. It's actually a really quite new and modern phenomenon that men and women of the same age marry. It's really unusual. All through human history, that's not the case. Why have we started that now? So, I mean, it's not hard to find examples of studies that show that, as this study says, a recent study conducted confirms that men prefer younger women even if they're much older in age. They tend to prefer sexual partners in their 20s regardless of their own age. And there have been lots of data sets received from online dating sites that goes to show that women's like peak attractiveness is 18 to 21, something like
Which
that.
is when they're most fertile.
Yes, it's when they're most fertile, when they're most obviously attractive as a woman, and just after then it just peaks off. Whereas with men, if we go to the next one, Psychology Today tell us, many women apparently cite maturity, wisdom, and financial stability as good reasons to date men who are older. Who's exploiting who here?
If I was to hazard a guess, I'd probably say Taylor Swift is.
Yes, actually. Yeah, exactly. Especially 10 years down the line, she's still exploiting Jake Gyllenhaal.
Yeah.
But the point is nobody's exploiting anyone, because what this is the women bring youth and beauty to the relationship, which is what the man's looking for, and the man brings maturity, wisdom, and financial stability, which is what the woman's looking for. It's called a partnership. It is not exploitation. It's not wrong. It is, in fact, totally natural, and people have been doing it for literally hundreds of thousands of years. The research reveals that both evolutionary and social motives to explain women's desire to date older men. But regardless of the legitimacy of the move, both parties in the men-older age gap relationships have to overcome a certain stigma and stereotype, even though it's totally normal. The stigma is new. The stigma is from the 20th century. And it's weird that there would be a stigma, again, from the love is love movement. There's a stigma about this now because it's exploitation, according to feminists. Anyway, they know that the term cradle robber and grave digger exist, obviously, gold digger, exist. But contrary to the stereotype, many age gap couples do not display even the appearance of ulterior financial or professional motives. Many such couples are similar in every way except chronological age. So it seems to be a point where like the personality types harmonize. Because women, of course, if you didn't know, mature more quickly than men, because it's just what life is like. And it seems that that's something that nature has accounted for.
It's a balance of social goods between the two sexes.
Yes, that's exactly it. So Sarah Skentleberry and Darren Fowler investigated the attachment in 2016, investigated the attachment styles of heterosexual women who date older men. They note that research reveals a negative view of couples when the age gap between them is significant. They also recognize the commonly held belief that women who date men who are 10 or more years older have unhealthy relationships with their father. But is it true? And according to the research, the answer was no. They did a study of nearly 200 women, 44 of whom were dating men approximately 10 years older, and the stereotype of women choosing significantly older men as a result of daddy issues was unsupported, according to this study. In fact, they found a 74% of women in age gap relationships enjoyed the relationship in which they were securely attached. So 75% of these relationships, or 3/4 of these relationships, were good, according to the women in them. And this is because, of course, men and women's desirability peaks at different times in their lives. As the New York Times discovered, well, women's attractiveness peaks at 18, while men's peaks at 50. Must be looking for different things in their partners. But yeah, so this was published a study about online dating that was published in the journal Science Advances that covered 200,000 users, all of whom were seeking opposite-sex partners, and this was the result of the data. A woman is most attractive at 18, although I have seen other data sets that say 21, but either way, early adulthood, whereas men, it's 50 years old, apparently. So I've still got 8 years to go, so that's great. But I just want to say, just on a personal note, like this is totally borne out by my own personal experience as well. My wife's 8 years younger than I am. We've been married 5 years now. We've got 3 kids, house, career, everything's going great. She's a housewife. She seems satisfied with it, I hope. But don't take dating advice from Taylor Swift or the childless feminist harpies who write for The Independent who want you to make their mistakes.
If you enjoyed that segment from the podcast Lotus Eaters, you can catch us live 1 p.m. UK time on our website. And if you'd like more from us, you can also subscribe to find some of our premium content.
Yeah, we actually have absolutely loads on there now because we're over a year old at this point. So we've got a massive library of content that you can't find anywhere else, such as our regular series, which are Contemplations and Epochs. Contemplations, we have philosophical and scientific discussions. And in Epochs, we have long, in-depth conversations about things that happen in history. This is one we did recently about the Nika riots, the absolutely brutal Nika riots in Constantinople. I really enjoyed doing myself. But we also have we also have loads of expert articles from people who know what they're talking about, such as this one talking about the misnomer of postmodern neo-Marxism. You may well remember Jordan Peterson getting castigated by left-wing activists for using the phrase. Well, it is a bit of a misnomer, but Thomas happens to be an expert in this subject, and so he takes you through it. And as you can see, there is a silver and gold tier member audio track that goes along with it. So if you don't want to have to read it, you can just listen to it instead. But we also have a bunch of premium podcasts that we can't really host on YouTube because of editorial guidelines, shall we say, such as Harry doing this excellent one, What Happened to the January 6th Rioters, and another one, in fact, that Harry and myself did about a whistleblower from a German public broadcaster talking about the COVID coverage and the particularly engineered narrative in which they can't talk about certain things. And so this leaves a bunch of questions up in the air, and we explore that. Again, editorial guidelines mean we can't really host that elsewhere. We also have a bunch of really excellent interviews. I did one recently with a chap called Philip Tanzer. He's if you're a men's rights activist, you may have heard of him because he comes out of that space, but he's also an ex-gay porn star who's turned conservative activist who has some very interesting opinions.
Very interesting trajectory to take.
Yeah, it's the sort of person you're probably not going to meet in your regular life, but he's a fascinating guy. He's a really nice chap. And also follow us on alternative media because, of course, we want to break the stranglehold of Silicon Valley over everything that we do. And this means that follow us on platforms like Getter, where you can follow lotuseaters_com to get all the latest updates from us. And also, we are speaking, or I am speaking, at a conference hosted by Getter at the London O2, the Indigo section of the London O2 on December the 8th. I'll be speaking there it's part of the Counterculture conference, where we're talking about why what is happening to the West is happening and what we can do about it. So part of that is following us on Getter and coming and see us, and of course, subscribe, because that keeps everything running.
Based.